Welcome to the second part of the fundamentals tutorials. And for this one it's going to be a little bit more technical. We're going to go in and cut into the mesh and clean up afterwards. Sometimes you'll find that you have to create a shape and then later on you find that it's not really working, but so you'll need to go in and delete it. But rather than deleting the whole shape, there's ways to fix up just certain areas. So that'll be one part, and the fourth and final part, is just going to be adding detail inside other bits of detail, just using references, similar to what you'd use on like a tire rim or something like that. For the first one, if you've seen the first tutorial, you'll know that most of those were made straight from planes and edge extrusion, which is mainly what this is going to be also, except for the last one. So we'll get started on that. And yeah, make sure you got your hotkeys loaded like last time, and we'll just continue on from where we left off. So we can hide that. So connect, pinch, did that quite a bit last time also. Just adjusting your settings to what you need as you're going along. So rather than, there's a couple of ways you could approach this one. One would be extruding in and then cleaning up, but the way I add detail similar to this is I just delete the faces and extrude them down and then bridge them, and what that'll do is that will leave two borders which you'll need to cap. So usually I've got all this stuff set up to hotkeys like cap and stuff like that, but for the tutorials it's just easier for you guys to see it through the interface. So connect again, pinch them out. Like last time, whenever you need to add two edges, just use the pinch technique rather than doing two separate connects. So we're just going to be hardening off all these pieces from each angle. Depending on how hard you want those edges, just slide them in closer or not. Because there's three, you can get this, really razor edge. If you want, you don't need to add any more loops. So add the turbo smooth, 2 iterations, and isoline for the display. So yeah, that's this first one, and it's just really simple, but just using similar technique as always. You can just clean up parts and make them look nice and hard. So that's the first one done, and we can just get rid of that, and we'll move on to the second piece, which is sort of just adding in detail to the third, but rather than creating that from scratch, we'll just do this one individually, just so you know how it was done. So simple plane again, connect up, connect again, and just drag it up. You'll also find that most of the time I'm just modeling in the perspective view, because you don't really actually need to be in any other view when you're doing this sort of simple stuff. I mean, if you're trying to match curves up like I am now, I'm trying to match up this curve from the other piece, I'll go into the side views, but most of the time you can just be eyeballing stuff from the perspective view. So we'll need to harden up this edge here. Okay, now you need to add in the the inset, or better yet, first we will give it some thickness on the borders. So loop those edges and just drag down. Now the base of this plane, seeing as everything's created on the Z axis, we know is on the Z plane. Just grab those vertices and set them to 0. You can connect here, harden off that top face. And you see that it was sliding both ways, so once again just turn on edge snap mode, drag up and then drag straight back down. That'll keep the shape there. Now we just need to bridge these two edges and drag these out. Okay, now to get the inset edge on the inside, I need geometry for that. So 2 edges, pinch it out. Oops. And we can just chain for all these. So yeah, that's just simply how we've done that hard edge. You can see up here there's another hard edge needed. So connect again. So that's how we will do this first one, this first sort of circular part of the next piece. So we can get rid of that and move on. So you can see this plane, similar to the last one. Just go from side on again, just to match them up. And then we'll need to extrude out. See, it's two lots of detail there. And if we delete these 2 faces, just like the first set, we'll, rather than extruding up or doing any of that sort of stuff, we'll just drag out. So we need to make sure that these edges line up on the same plane. So it looks like they're at minus 87.495. You can just copy paste that value in and weld up. So, and they're smooth now. Same as always, just turbo smooth, isoline display, and we'll need to harden that edge up. Harden all the edges up. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of the time, or nearly all the time actually, it's just to get extra detail I just use the cut tool. It's just really fast just to do it that way. You know, sometimes can't be bothered and need to get stuff done quickly. You can just cut those shapes. So terminating. To get rid of if you just hit remove in the edge palette, you'll see that it leaves the actual vertices there. And when you smooth, it causes pinch errors, stuff like that. To get rid of that, just hold down Control when you're removing, and that will remove the vertice also. So now it's a nice sharp edge, it's all clean, and let's just say we've added in that connect here. Whoops. You've added in that inset and you want to change it later. first we need that inset there. Just drag down. Shame for them. Okay, you can see there's still no errors, but this is something where the other pieces we've done so far can be done, pretty straightforward. This one actually requires a little bit of tweaking as you're going, so that's where the show end result mode sort of will help a lot, just to figure out the actual curves that are taking place. So to start off, I'll just simply cut across the angle where I want. So the whole point of this part is just to be getting that nice smooth cut. So to start off, just cut the angle you want, and then the next angle. Add another cut on the side. So it's a bit hard to explain this stuff, but if you just follow along, you'll see what I'm doing. So we need to keep a flow heading in this direction. So probably what I should be doing now is bringing up this back face here to the same height as these other ones. So just copy paste that Z value and bring it up. And just do it for all of them actually. These edges too. So you can see the start of how it works. Now we'll need that looped part here. So hold down Control and loop it. I'm just removing any faces you don't need. The whole point is to keep it as simple as possible. So anything you don't need while you're making this stuff, just get rid of. Now we can drag this part down a little bit. And we'll need to keep an edge loop flowing on that same path. So you can see just there I've just simply target welded it together, looped and removed, and now you'll see that it's starting to come together. Still really rough and wonky, but we'll get rid of that. So now I will snap these all so they're on the same height. Just keeps things clean. The further, like, the more you snap pieces the more you snap pieces to the same height, the better chance you've got of minimizing errors. So you can see it's fading off just sort of into nothing here because there's nothing defining that edge. So we'll need to add it. Get rid of that face, and that'll keep things square. And just take a step back and you just sort of analyze where you're at with the model. You'll see there's a bit of a problem up here. It's not over far enough. So this is where show end result sort of really helps. You can see the curve in real time. trying to compare the two, and it looks like we don't have a loop sort of defining the height of this segment. So I can just cut again. And the reason I'm swapping back and forth between the high poly so often is, if you saw in the first part, sometimes errors happen when you're cutting. You just got to be careful of that, because it does happen sort of more than you think. So that's not going to be hard enough. So we'll need to connect an edge there, cut down, and this is where you can get rid of that edge loop here. So anytime you see a triangle or an edge loop leading off from a triangle, you can just easily get rid of it, clean things up. You can see there's still a triangle there that we've got to get rid of. So to do that, once again, same as the last one, just remove it and get rid of this, and we're almost there. So this edge needs to be further over. Okay, so now down the bottom, that's basically, I mean, I don't know if you followed that too easy, if I was going a bit too quick just to understand, but you can see that taking a shape and cutting into it, just using the same techniques as all the other pieces, if you just, you know, stick to those same methods, it's not actually that much to learn. Actually, it's just, you know, a lot of repetition, like I've said. So now you're sort of left with all these edges down here, and you don't really need them. If you're willing to spend the time to get rid of them, you can just terminate up any three edges leading together and delete the remaining face. It'll probably create like a little bit of a pinch, but it's not really noticeable. Better to just remove them, in my opinion. Okay, so that's that piece out of the way. Now we're going to just be going in and changing that once again. So you've cut the piece, and now you've realized that it's a mistake, or you need to, or like you've been given direction to do it differently. So you can see the only changes that have been made are here and just a little extrude up. We'll start with the extrude. So loop it. Okay, so you can see the problem area when you've compared them is over here. So rather than deleting like every single part here, we want to use bits of detail left over from the other piece. So just remove this section here, which leaves some detail for us to use over the back. We'll need to remove these pieces down the bottom. They're not needed. And just get rid of those. And we may as well get rid of this bit too. Anything that's on a weird angle that you're going to need to clean up later, just remove it. So now you'll see we're all back to having flat faces. So the first step in cleaning up this area is getting this flat plane happening. So you can see the edges loops aren't lining up down the bottom here. So you'll need to remove all of them but two. So now you can grab those edges and weld them up. So that's the first part of any sort of cleanup. Now we've lost that hard edge here, so we'll need to get that back. So you can just cut along the face and weld up here. So that's the second part done. Now we're going to need to have something to cut to over here, so you'll need another loop. For this cleanup stuff, because this is a flat face, you don't need to use the connect tool. It's quicker to use the cut tool. We can weld those faces now, and you can see we're slowly getting there. You know, one step at a time, just thinking about it as you're going. This edge lip here looks like it's a bit too far down, so you need to drag that back and close. I'm just comparing the two just so you can see. So the next thing you notice is that the edge loop down the bottom here is terminated off. So for now we will just get rid of, we'll target weld here and just get rid of this face, these edges here. And we can cut down the bottom, extrude, connect it. Just delete those faces, bridge them up. And now that will be back to a hard edge down the bottom. So really there's not much left to cap off. Next part will be bridging these two, which is going to leave a little bit of a problem that we'll need to fix. So you'll see that it's left a little opening gap which you'll need to connect up. And once again, if you need to connect these two pieces, just make a simple cut, target weld it, and then you can just remove that and just see where it's at. It's going to be pinching. This last part, if we just cap that up, you'll see that it's still not exact. So we'll need an edge leading up top here. Oops, that's actually meant to be part of this part. And we'll just connect down here. Almost there, there's just a couple more edges to define. I'm going to connect these up. We can get rid of this face. And you just got to add in another edge here. and to finish this piece off you can just connect up. So what I'm doing when I'm doing this stuff is, I mean, it's a little bit hard to explain, but basically I'm just looking for sort of ways to terminate those edges and looking for problems and just how to fix them. So if you take it sort of one poly at a time, you can see that the cleanup stage is, you know, fairly straightforward, and you can just break it down, you know, break it down into its simple form when you're doing it, and that'll be how you minimize errors and stuff like that. Any sort of problems solvable, but it's just an experience thing, just figuring out, you know, the right amount of edges you need, stuff like that. So you can still see there's like a 5-sided point here on the bottom, which I have failed to see. Yeah, just like that, you can fix it. So that is that piece. So that's a little bit more complicated than the other stuff. It's a bit hard to explain how I'm doing it, but it's straightforward, and you'll see that everything's simple as possible. Like if you wanted, you could just keep optimizing that. You know, you could remove parts you don't need, add them back in. And even though it's a little bit messy, you can clean that up if you want. Connect back. So yeah, that's just sort of similar to what we'll be getting onto in part 3, but just on larger pieces and welding between different, you know, welding between stuff like this to other pieces. So the third one will be covering those type of techniques. To finish off, we're just going to do a nice cool little thing, just to add a lot of detail to an object. So to start off with this one, we'll start with a 40-sided cylinder. There's 20 spheres there. So make it 40-sided. If you're doing cylinders, just make sure you snap everything to 0. You're doing it because we're going to need to be symmetrying this stuff. Set the cap segment. You don't need any of these back faces, so you can just delete them. Now we'll just connect outwards towards the rim. Once again. Control I will invert selected. So this is just the same as the other ones we've done. Just enable snap. Sometimes depending on the scale it might be a little bit big or small. You just shrink that back in to fit inside the circle. I don't know if I said it last time, but the steps have to be set to 1. I don't know if it was on default last time. And just snap that stuff. Delete the inside faces, weld up. Always weld the corners, and I'm guessing there's going to be another error here. There always is. Yep, there was. Okay, so that's set up. Now we're going to rotate and set in reference mode. but make sure by default Max sets the angle degree snap to 5, which I don't think is going to work with this one. So you'll need to set it to 1 degree angle, which is just here. And when you rotate it, in the clone options, set the reference to 19. We know there's already one there, and it's 40-sided. It's 2 polys, so that's going to line up. Now you can just model on any of them, and it will apply it to all of them. So snap off, and just cap it. And you can just do a multiple attach. And sorry, I forgot to mention, you can't attach references together, so you'll need to convert them all to polys first, and then you can just attach them all. Make sure to weld it, and that'll get rid of all the borders. Just double check, if you've ever needed to weld a few borders together and you haven't set the settings correct, just set it to border and drag over everything, and you'll see where vertices aren't welding up. You can just do whatever for these outside bits. So yeah, that's just another part of this set of 3. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we will get on to the third one, I believe, in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks heaps.